for dinner this evening. A clear I win, you lose situation would be...
What would you like to do this evening?
I'd like to go to a fish restaurant.
Unfortunately, my wife doesn't like fish.
Well, I'm sure the restaurant will serve something else for her.
Well, yes, all right. I know a good fish restaurant.
Could you pick me up at the hotel?
Yeah, sure.
This time I'll apply some win-win language. Let's see what happens.
What would you like to do this evening?
How about going to a fish restaurant? Does your wife like fish?
Unfortunately, she doesn't.
No problem. Why don't we try to find a restaurant that your wife likes that can offer me some good fish as well?
Great idea. I think you'll like her favorite restaurant. They do fish, too.
Fine. Let's meet at the restaurant. I can take a taxi from the hotel.
Oh, of course not. We'll pick you up at the hotel. Okay, well, we haven't got time for anything else today, so goodbye.
Bye-bye.
So, if you're negotiating or deciding where to go for an informal business dinner, win-win language can really make a difference. Let's have a look at the 4 phrases used in both win-win situations that made this difference. How about trying to reduce the number of trips? Why don't we? Why don't we try to find a restaurant that your wife likes? Let's try to see if we can find an alternative solution. Shall we? What time shall we meet? When placed at the beginning of a sentence, these phrases involve the other person and keep them involved in the conversation. Even in informal situations, it's important that no one comes away feeling they've lost. So this technique can be very useful. The key to small talk is simplicity. Use open questions. Where did you go on holiday last year? They keep the conversation going. Try not to use closed questions. Did you go on holiday last year? They only require a yes or no answer, which can often finish a conversation. Prepare some simple responses to things that people may tell you. That's interesting. Congratulations. Oh, how terrible. That's too bad. Fantastic. Amazing. Most important, prepare an appropriate way to say goodbye. I think it's time for me to get back to the hotel. Thank you for a lovely evening. I'm afraid I have to be leaving soon. I still have to finish some work. It's been wonderful meeting all of you. Well, it's been really nice talking to you. Use win-win language and everyone is a winner.
Welcome back, Gary. How was the International Book Fair in Frankfurt?
Great. I cultivated a number of interesting contacts that could lead to great opportunities. I also participated in a very important conference on the current state of affairs in the international book market.
Oh, do tell, Gary.
Yes, okay, but just a brief summary because I've really got to get going. Mr. Stevens wants a report on the trade fair ASAP, and I've been away for 3 days, so I've got a ton of work to catch up on. In any case, a number of the top company representatives from the largest international publishing houses participated. The most interesting presentation was surely that of John Schumann, one of the top experts in the publishing sector.
And what did he have to say?
Excuse me, just a moment. It's one of my contacts from Frankfurt. As I was saying, John Schumann, using the most current data as his starting point, he determined that the publishing market is growing slowly and that the number of readers is stagnant. It's the readers who already buy books and who want to increase the size of their libraries who are responsible for sales.
To cut a long story short, the current crisis has been around for a while.
Unfortunately, yes. Just the other day, a friend of mine from Amsterdam in the publishing trade was telling me that his company has had to let 15 people go since the beginning of the year.
You're kidding. Does that mean that we could become redundant?
No, Rachel, I just finished telling you that the trade fair was a huge success. We've just got to look at these things over the long term. It's the latest technologies that will offer the most success in this market.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about digital editing. We are on the cusp of a revolution in publishing. In other words, the transition from printed publishing to digital publishing.
I'm afraid I don't agree with you, Gary. Internet, email, CD-ROM, DVDs, and all electronic gadgets put together will never substitute the joy of reading a book.
I know, Rachel, you are a Luddite, but this is the future. The owner of a multimedia publishing house from Stockholm told me that they were able to greatly lower production, distribution, and warehousing costs, all due to digital publishing. Not only that, but just think of the level of interaction we can achieve with readers via internet. And besides that, just a moment, excuse me.
I bet it's one of your important contacts from Frankfurt.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it is.
Judging from your expression, I'd say that these contacts are mostly female.
Oh, hi, Victoria. Why weren't you at the meeting this morning?
Which meeting?
The meeting that Mrs. Collins called with all the department heads to come to grips with the situation. And I quote, to discuss the means with which we can improve both production and company efficiencies.
No one told me anything. I bet she did that on purpose, my darling boss. She wanted to get back at me for a mistake I made on a shipment. She always keeps me out of the loop on all the important developments and makes me do the work of a secretary. I hate her.
Come on, Victoria, chin up. Things will get better.
I'm not sure about that, Paul. Anyway, tell me, what did you discuss at the meeting?
Well, you can imagine the tone that Mrs. Collins used. She prefers cold and distant. She urged us all to work even harder to overcome this difficult moment for the company.
According to her, we should be working 24/7, 365.
Listen to this. She told the warehouse manager to calculate the efficiency of workers more precisely as they go about their tasks, and if necessary, to lengthen their hours. Then she invited Mr. Rover, the personal director, to evaluate the necessity of any new hiring. She told him that from now on, each and every short-term or long-term plan must first be evaluated and approved by her.
I always said she was a dictator.
Yeah. And she claims that we should be delighted at her flexibility and that many corporate heads she knows would just resort with a huge personnel cuts to improve the situation.
Oh, what an understanding woman.
You bet. Then she added that companies need to meet deadlines and to work within strict budgets in order to keep clients satisfied and remain competitive in the market. Finally, referring to you, she reminded us all that delays and errors in projects are absolutely unacceptable. What are you doing, Victoria? Are you taking notes?
No, I'm writing my letter of resignation.
Did you hear what she said? She said, I'm writing my letter of resignation. Now, do you remember what that means? Letter of resignation, it means she wants to resign, she wants to leave the company and quit her job. Poor Victoria. Well, let's now turn back to what we said at the beginning of the lesson, which was international fairs, and look at some of the language which is useful for you related to those. Now, if you decide to represent your company in an international fair, you are called an exhibitor. Look at the screen. An exhibitor. And what you have in order to display your things is a stand. It can be small, it can be large, but it's a stand. Also, we use booth. Now, when you go to the fair, the hard work begins because you have to set up or build the stand. Then, when it's ready, you display, which means to show, you display your goods, your products, or your services. Then at the end of the week, usually it's a week, you take down the stand. Now, if you're on the stand, it's really hard work, and I want to help you with some phrases that can be useful when visitors are walking past. Now, as they walk past, you often want to invite them onto the stand. Sometimes they will talk to you directly, but other times they just want to come on and look around. So you could say, do come in and have a look around. Have a look around. Now, another thing we use, which is very nice, is please feel free to browse. Please feel free to browse. Browse, which is also computer language, it means to look at things calmly. Okay? Now, obviously you don't want to abandon them, so you could say, if you need my help, don't hesitate to ask. If you need my help, don't hesitate to ask me. Okay? Now, obviously, with potential clients, there comes a time where you will be talking about prices. So, often a question that they will ask you is, what price discount do you offer on large quantities? Price discount, okay? Or what discount do you offer on upfront payment, which is an American term, or cash in advance, which is the British term. So that means you pay upfront, you pay before receiving the goods. Now, when you're answering questions like that, it depends on the person you're talking to because they might be from Japan, from Germany, from America. So an important question to ask is, which currency would you like me to quote you in? Which currency? It could be yen, it could be pounds, it could be French francs, for example. So which currency would you like me to quote you in? Now, you could also say, for example, our price is X works, fob, or chief. Now, these might be familiar to you. They are the specific Incoterms. Incoterm means the international contract terms. Okay? Let's move on. Payment. Now, that's an important consideration. The question could be, what are your terms of payment? And you might want to answer, well, we usually work with a letter of credit. And as we said before in the previous lesson, a letter of credit is probably the safest term of payment. Then delivery questions could be, how long will it take you to deliver after confirmation of the letter of credit? Other possibilities are, they will ask you, what are your delivery conditions? Can you shorten your delivery time? Now, shorten means reduce it. So can you shorten your delivery time to, for example, 15 days? And another thing is transportation. Which freight forwarders, do you remember that? Shipping agents. Which shipping agents or freight forwarders do you use? Now, if you have to produce things, then you could ask the question, for example, or state, we need 60 days production time. Another word for production time is lead time. So we need 60 days production time, lead time from receipt of the letter of credit. That's very important. These conditions are extremely important to state at the beginning of your business relationships. Then, when you've talked and when it's time for the client to leave, you exchange business cards. So you could say, here is my business card with our company details. You can reach me on this number anytime during office hours. Notice we say you can reach me, you can phone me, you can contact me. Then after the fair, you can say, for example, let me know if you need anything, or give me a call if you have any queries. Queries, another word for questions. Don't hesitate to contact me if you need help, okay? And then just wish them have a good trip back, because they've probably traveled from another country. All right, well, I hope that helps you in some way to deal with the situation when you're on the stand. And good luck, because it's really hard work. Okay, thanks very much, and see you in the next lesson. Bye.
Paul.
Don't tell me this is true. Are you really going to leave?
Yes, Paul. I just can't stay here. Since Mrs. Collins has arrived, the work climate has become unbearable. She never misses an opportunity to humiliate me and to assign me the most demeaning tasks.
And what are you going to do now?
Well, I've got in touch with a number of companies. This afternoon, for example, I have an interview with a publishing house.
Publishing house? You're not going to become an author, are you?
Precisely. You know it's always been a dream of mine. I don't think the interview is going to focus on my literary talents. But, Paul, you look awful. What's the matter?
I'm a bit concerned about things. We're having a meeting with the major shareholders of Spectre to take a look at the balance sheets.
And is that a problem?
Well, as you know, the year-end balance sheets provide an overview of the economical, fiscal and fiduciary effectiveness of our management. And I certainly hope that scrutinizing the books won't uncover inconvenient discrepancies that could lead to a change of a company leadership.
What exactly are you referring to?
As you know, things haven't been rosy lately, even if there has been a slight improvement in share prices during the last quarter. However, at the same time, the outstanding debts to our suppliers have also increased. In other words, our revenues don't cover our expenses.
The situation is serious then.
That's right. I'm afraid we'll need to resort to additional outside financing. I've been calculating the various balance sheets entries to understand what's causing our debts and try to develop a plan of attack to get our weak points under control. The results are anything but encouraging. As you well know, the solidity and integrity of our financial core assets are indispensable to keeping our production capabilities intact and revenues flowing.
I certainly wouldn't want to be in your shoes at the meeting.
No kidding. I'm predicting lightning and thunder. I wish I didn't have to participate. Perhaps I could come down with a sudden case of flu or something. How about kidney inflammation accompanied by high fever caused by a highly contagious virus mysteriously present in the company? You'll laugh, but now that you won't be here, I'll have to double the work. By the way, they don't happen to need someone else at the publishing house you were speaking about.
So you're a secret author as well?
No, but I can do a lot of things. For example, use a computer, make photocopies, send faxes. That should be enough, shouldn't it?
What a clown. I'm going to miss your jokes, Paul.
Yes, I see. I understand. But it has to be done by Friday. Is that possible? Good, good. It's very important. We'll be in touch. Thank you. Goodbye. Mrs. Lee. You've got an exceptional CV.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stevens.
I don't quite understand why you left Spectre. According to this, you were in a position of considerable responsibility.
That's true. I was very satisfied with my job at the beginning. I had a very prestigious position and many high-profile projects were sent my way. However, once Spectre was taken over by a Japanese multinational, things just took a turn to the worse. My boss was let go, many of my colleagues were transferred, and I was relieved of my duties. And of course, well, maybe I shouldn't tell you.
Please do. No reason to be afraid.
Well, the truth is, I just didn't get along with my new boss.
I appreciate your frankness. Sincerity is one of the main qualities that I look for in my employees. But tell me, Mrs. Lee, how are your bookkeeping, invoicing, and administrative skills?
Excellent, I would say. But I wanted to speak to you about an...
Are you familiar with the publishing market?
Yes, to a certain degree. But as I was saying, ever since I was a child, I've always been fascinated by...
You can tell me about your dreams at another time, Mrs. Lee. Currently, we're busy with our year-end balance sheet, and I need a well-trained assistant to prepare an assessment of our administrative expenses and to study our assets and liabilities. You, considering your experiences, appear to be a perfect fit.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stevens. But once this emergency has blown over, I was wondering if perhaps you could take me into consideration as
Yes?
an author. I'm quite talented. My literature professor at university used to encourage me.
This is not a school, Mrs. Lee. I got in touch with you to speak to you about our marketing office. That's what I'd like to hire you for. Please don't be offended, but keep your dreams to yourself for the moment. As far as books are concerned, we can get started on the bookkeeping immediately.
Certainly. But later?
We'll see. We'll see.
Did you notice how Mr. Stevens was reading a CV, it was Victoria's curriculum vitae, when he was doing the interview with her? Well, often, in reality, people doing interviews don't have time to read the whole CV. And so if you're in the interview, you have to look at the information very quickly and just get the general understanding of it. So what he was doing, he was skimming for important information. And that's what I want to talk to you about now, are the 4 skills that we use for reading, which are skimming, scanning, extensive reading, and intensive reading. So let's call on the screen to look at those. Now, the first thing that I talked about was skimming, which is what I said Mr. Stevens was doing. And that means that you read quickly in order to get the most important information or to get the gist. The gist is the general understanding, the most important information, to get the gist. And this is what you will do in your job, for example, if you have to read a newspaper quickly, magazines, business and travel brochures, for example. So you read them quickly to pick out the important information. That's skimming. The second one is scanning. Now, we use scanning in order to extract particular information, a particular piece of information. So, for example, if you want to see a particular television program, you scan it. If you want to think about travel, if you want to see what train or what plane leaves, a train or a plane schedule, you scan it and pick out the particular information important for you. Also, a conference guide. When there are many speeches, you scan and pick out the one relevant to you. So that's skimming, scanning. What about extensive reading? Now, extensive reading is the type of reading you use when you want to obtain a general understanding about a subject. So, for example, it could mean for you reading a market strategy book, or a novel, or a magazine article which is related to your job. So, extensive reading for general understanding. And the last one is the intensive reading, and that is for very close, very accurate reading for detail, and that's where you read for every word. It's important to understand every word and every fact, obviously. And in this case, you would use it with like a bookkeeping report, very important to look at the details, an insurance claim, or for contracts. Terribly important to read every word. That is intensive reading. So remember that when you're in your workplace, it's important to be able to move between skimming, scanning, extensive reading and intensive reading. Sometimes in English you are tempted to want to understand every word, so you use the dictionary. It takes ages. It's just not necessary. Remember, check on what the task is that you want to achieve and then choose whether you need to skim or scan, and don't bother about the words that you don't understand. Go for the particular information. All right? So happy reading. Bye and see you in the next lesson.